Are you ready for pain? Are you ready for suffering? If the answer is yes, then you're ready.
Whenever I talk about the importance of kids having access to LGBTQ education, I usually receive one of two comments. The first is that teachers should leave their personal lives at home, as if we're honestly asking them to talk about tribbing at the pep rally. And the second comment is, queer education? What does that even mean? So as a proud contributor to the gay agenda, I've come up with a quick list of things that could easily be added to curriculum in an age-appropriate manner. First up is queer sex ed / health. I've spoken about this before, and the condom on banana everybody is straight sex ed didn't cut it for me, and it's not going to cut it for any other queer child. We need comprehensive sex ed that teaches everyone how to safely share intimacy and how to understand their bodies and or identities. Next up is easy. We have queer history. Queer history is Black history. It's women's history. It's American history. Some of y'all ancestors was queer. And lastly, even teaching grade school kids about the different kinds of families can go a long way. And I know somebody's going to ask me why this is necessary. Because, Sandra, queer people exist. Queer children exist. Cishet kids with queer parents exist. And by teaching children to be understanding, inclusive, tolerant, we can make the world better for all of these children. Who wouldn't want that?
It is incredibly important for there to be queer representation in education because LGBTQ plus youth are more likely than their cis straight peers to be unhoused, to experience depression, anxiety, to be unsatisfied with their lives, and to also lose their lives. And just by accepting those students and by treating them as human beings and showing them compassion and kindness, they are less likely to experience those adverse life effects. Now, there's been a lot of recent pushback against queer teachers in the workplace, especially in public education. A lot of people are coming out saying that we're groomers, that we're child predators, when that is so far beyond the truth. We are just people who are teachers. And being out, having me be your child's teacher, me, someone who's out, queer, out as non-binary and bi in the classroom, I'm not going to make your child into something that they're not. I'm only going to give children who are already different the experience they need to feel safe enough to be who they are. And by doing this, I could save a child's life. By being an out teacher, by being a safe classroom, by wholeheartedly supporting my students and having no tolerance for hatred and bigotry in my classroom, I can save the lives of teenagers. And that is incredibly important because at the end of the day, we should want our teenagers to live. We should want them to feel happy. We should want them to be able to experience life fully. When I was a teenager, the only queer teachers that I knew were a couple who had to pretend that they weren't together, that they didn't live together, that they weren't raising children together. These two women had to act like they were not basically married. This was before gay marriage was legalized. And this was 2013. So this wasn't even like the 90s. This was 2000s. And their children had to even only call one of them mom when they were out in public because of the morality clause in a teaching contract. They could lose their jobs for being gay. Now that gay marriage is legalized, teachers have less of a fear of that, but with more modern, recent pushback against LGBTQ educators, of the fear-mongering, of people thinking that we are predators, that we are groomers, when we absolutely aren't. It is more important than ever for me to be out because I didn't have someone who was out. And that's something that made my life worse as a teenager.
Where y'all keep fucking up is that you think that gender is a social construct, but that sex or biological sex is like real. And I'm here to tell you that biological sex is also a social construct. Should I elaborate?
In the spirit of all this red, let's talk about that time of the month while traveling. This is a menstrual cup for those of you that don't know. I switched to these in 2016 and have purchased 2 ever. So I've spent a total of $15 on menstrual cups for all of my menstrual needs, and that means that I have been saving hundreds of dollars every year. There are multiple brands with multiple shapes and sizes. This is a small blossom. There are different ways to put it in. How I like to do it is you fold it in half and put it in, and then release it. This one has a trimmable tip so you can snip it to make it comfortable so you don't feel it at all. I change it twice a day, once in the morning, once at night. It makes it so great when traveling or living on the road because you don't have to worry about disposing of anything else. It's just this little cup. You can sanitize it by boiling it in water, which we can easily do in the RV, or you can do that at any place that you travel, really. It has access to hot boiling water. Simple and cost-effective solution.
Okay, quick recap. Michigan Teacher of the Year, I was asked to testify in opposition to a transphobic athletics bill in my state Senate. Before the senator could hear my words, she ran out of time, so I put my testimony on Twitter instead. Since then, at least 4 different news outlets have run stories using pieces of my testimony and interviews with me, which is great, and it's furthered my message to a lot more people. But, I'm tired, y'all. Oh my god, am I tired. I know you're not supposed to read the comments, but the comments, y'all, on these stories, it's just become very obvious to me that the people who support these transphobic athletics bills have a lot of misconceptions and generalizations about what it is to be transgender, and they want to make these sweeping laws based on these generalizations and misconceptions. And I'm just tired, y'all. I'm tired.
If you wonder if I hate you, I do. City of you to make me.
I don't even think that you believe that. And a piece of me really thinks that y'all don't know what racism is. Calling a white person a mayo monkey is not racist. Is it insulting? Yes. Racist? No. What a lot of y'all are forgetting to understand is that racism is about power. Racism and power go hand in hand. We all know that black people do not have more power than white people. Now, can black people be prejudiced? Yes. Black people can say insulting and disrespectful things to white people, but to say that black people are more racist than white people is just illogical. Because at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, white people will always have that power over black people. They will always have that privilege. You don't even need to pick up a book to know that. It's literally smack dead in all of our faces.
Toxic masculinity, or conversations about toxic masculinity, absence of a definition of black manhood to me is toxic. Because with all the people that described about their experience with toxic masculinity, it's really an absence of masculinity in your life. And so a lot of people talked about single parent homes and things like that. And I'm born and raised in Baltimore City, in a neighborhood called Down the Hill. And what you see is that these boys are in desperate need of a manhood definition. And you can't build a manhood definition off of negation. This is what manhood is not. But I won't ever tell you what black manhood is. Won't ever describe that to you, won't ever train that in you. And so for me, the definition, the toxic masculinity is an important conversation, but what's more important is the definition of manhood. Because these boys around Baltimore City that are robbing and killing and hurting each other, they're striving to be a something. Mm-hmm. They striving to be a real nigga. They striving to be men. And we as black men or professionals or whatever, we're not in the hoods enough training them in a definition of manhood. And that's just my opinion. And also our definition of manhood, as I'm listening, is so individualized. It's not culturally relevant at all. So our manhood as black people, even though we black, it don't relate to the black community. And so we're not talking about manhood from the perspective of a Malcolm X or Marcus Garvey or Nat Turner. We're talking about a Eurocentric manhood that's related to me and my family, maybe, but not related to my community and what my community needs from me as a man. Amen. And that's the type of man that Malcolm X was. That's the type of man that came before us. Men that strive to be what our community needed and was willing to pay the price for whatever they had to do for that. So I just wanted to say that conversations like this are great, but when I host a thing called Man to Man, and it's about black manhood. And what I would say is that most men, black men, are really struggling from a lack of an identity and trying to figure that out on their own. And we as black people don't supply that. But when they step off the wrong path, we quick to say, you toxic, you need to get yourself together.
All right, so man to man.